Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey guys and gals, it's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast, where we talk to super interesting people about politics, economics, the way they make their money. And I'm really excited about today's guest. One, because he's an old friend of mine since 10th grade. Two, he's one of the most educated and interesting men I know. And three, he's just had a crazy 20 years post-college, post-high school. So I'm going to introduce my buddy, Jumane. And man, you and I were just talking before we get started. It's like, you get out of college right before 9/11. You get out of business school / law school right before 2009 when everything lights up, lights down, melts down, and there's no jobs. And then you've got this crazy path of like 10 years working in the cannabis industry when it was, we'll call it in the gray area, and then becomes legalized, and now working in that spot full time. So what do we need to know about your journey the last 20 years that we missed in the intro?
It's been a roller coaster ride, but it's always been something about revealing more of yourself and just learning more about yourself and who you are, and acceptance of life, and it's a blessing to be here. It's a blessing to be here with you, man. It's been almost 30 years that we've known each other.
That's fucking crazy, man. I think about it, all the interesting people that came out of Highland High School from Palmdale, which for those of you that don't know, it's about an hour north of LA. It's a suburb, and it kind of has a bad reputation. Like, Afro Man came from there and just sang about weed and sang about how horrible it was and how racist it was. And you and I somehow are still friends, so it couldn't have been that bad. But what do people have to know about growing up in Palmdale?
Well, what's really interesting about Palmdale, I moved there in 93. We had the uprising, the riot, if you will, in 92. And so my mother, who's actually about my age when she made that move, I'm 41 now. So my mother at the time is just like, I've saved too much money and worked too hard to kind of live in a city where everything's burnt out. Everyone's moving out to the suburbs. I want a piece of that American dream. And the first place she went to was Monrovia. And she went with her brother, my uncle. And I remember I was like, okay, well, if we're going to move somewhere, like, I don't know what I was doing. Maybe it was with a friend or something, or it was during a weekend, but I was like, hey, Mom, next time you go somewhere, I want to go with you. If it's somewhere we're going to move, like, I want to, kind of get a feel of what it's like. And so the next place we go to check out is Palmdale. Just happens to be. And so we're out there, and my mom sees this house that she really likes. And this is where I learned that she makes these kind of decisions. Like, if she, sees something and she likes it, she just kind of goes with it. And I don't think that she really understood what she wanted to do as far as, she worked for the school system, LAUSD. She'd been a teacher working there. She thought, I'll transfer to the North Valley and I'll just commute. And when she retired, I counted the hours that she spent driving. And when I calculated total hours, my mom retired 2015, moved out there in 93. So I counted all those hours of her commuting on a weekly basis, 5 days a week, about 3 hours a day. It was over 2 total years. Total hours.
Oh, and this is before podcasts. This is before books. Well, you had books on tape, but not Audible. Yeah. I remember you could get 98.7 about half the way of the drive from Burbank to about half the way up to Palmdale. And then there's like 10 miles of dead space. It's like you don't even have good radio on that drive. No. It's just a fucked up drive down the 14 freeway.
Yeah. And so I get out to Palmdale, and I'm happy to be living in a new home. We're the first people living in this home. And then it starts to sink in about a year in, like, I really don't know anybody. And I'm on the east side of Palmdale. We go to school in the west side of Palmdale. I'm used to what was called the RTD at the time. Now it's like, the MTA or whatever. But, the public transportation, buses are coming every 5, 10, 15 minutes. And I'm out there, and the bus comes once an hour. And if you miss that bus, fucked.
You're sitting around a long time.
Yeah. And I remember times missing the bus from our high school and then having just to walk to the mall where the next cutoff point for the next bus was, because that walk was about a 30-minute walk, but that was better than just sitting at school for another hour.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah.
You know, it's funny because we also moved up to Palmdale about 94, I think right before I'm starting 10th grade. My dad's job transferred us up there. That's probably how we got to know each other, because we were both like the odd ducks, didn't really have any friends out there. And I remember, it's so funny because it was Chris, our sound engineer, when we were getting ready to move up there. His dad, Chris's dad, this guy Bob, who's been like a second, third father to me since I've been growing up. Since I've known Chris since he was born, and I was elementary school friends, kindergarten friends with his older brother. I remember Bob telling me, he's like, yeah, man, Palmdale, they got like a real race problem up there. And I think the Fast and the Furious movie had just come out, and I grew up in Glendale, and my parents had a very mixed, diverse group of friends. I'm like, race? Like a lot of people street racing, huh? And he looked at me and he's like, no, asshole. A race problem. He's like, you have a lot of like different minorities that have transitioned up there because they're trying to get out of certain neighborhoods and they want to live in the suburbs and they want to own a house, and housing isn't expensive there. I'm like, nah, there can't be a race problem. Give me a break, dude. That shit's only in the movies, right? And then sure enough, obviously this is right after the riots, and then you move up there and it was very cliquey. It was a cliquey high school.
Yeah, that's very interesting because you had our quad, and the Latinos are in one section, the
Totally.
white people are in one section, the black people are in one section. Now, this is interesting because I went to Palmdale High for a couple of weeks, and there were so many fights going on at Palmdale High. I didn't feel safe there, let alone I didn't really know anybody, and that's the high school that I'm closest to. But my first week there, like every day, there must have been 2 or 3 like big fights. Like it's one thing, one guy punches one guy, they separated, something like that. These are like full blown fisticuffs, haymakers being thrown.
Yeah, force on force, right?
And people getting involved, and I'm just like, we came out to Palmdale to avoid all this kind of stuff,
right?
Or at least my mom did, and so I'm like, what am I doing here? So I go to Highland, and I noticed that there wasn't as much of that element.
Agree.
Nonetheless, there was still that sort of cliquish sort of element, and I regretted. I shouldn't say I regretted, but it's interesting. The friends that I had in my particular neighborhood were a little bit younger, like a grade or 2 below for the most part, and they went to junior high. So when they went to Highland, they had an insulation, they had friends already.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting their friends, from junior high or whatever. And I said to myself, like, wow, okay. I thought, coming out here going to high school would be, sort of easy, to make friends. It's at a brand new place. But yeah, you have to kind of navigate yourself through those cliques.
I'll never forget like all the band people and all the goth people that wore all the high top boots and the men who wear mascara back in the day and the trench coats. They all sat up on the stage, and I remember walking around the first day because I think
that was the future.
That was the future for sure, for sure. They were 30 years ahead of the curve, and I remember. In Glendale School District, which is where I went to junior high went till 9th grade. And then I move up here, and that's when high school starts. So starting in 10th grade was the worst because everybody already had their clique and whatnot. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, I don't play volleyball. I'm not, a 6'7" white guy like Ryan Millar, who we had on the show. I don't wear any mascara. I don't play an instrument, so I can't go over there. So I just kind of like congregate in the middle, and I'm like, all right, that's probably how we met. Just stand in the middle, being like, I guess we're just here.
It's interesting though, for me, there is the law magnet, right? That just starts in our 10th grade year, right? And we're sort of groomed to sort of be in this program. And so me taking honors classes, it was a weird sort of dichotomy because I'm black. I fit in with this, black crowd, but I'm also in classes, with a lot of white people and then also a lot of other, cultural mixes as well. And so I'm in classes, with these people. I'm hanging out with these people. And not that that's like there's friction. I managed to sort of weave a cornucopia of great relationships from just, being myself and getting to know, people from all those different sorts of cultures. But it's probably not an easy navigation for people.
Yeah, I agree. So, you mentioned, I kind of totally forgot this. You and I were in that law magnet together where English was about law and history was about law.
Right.
And then, my dumbass ends up going to the Army because why apply for college? You end up going to Claremont and then Oregon for your, your MBA and your law degree. What did the path look like? Was it because your mom was a teacher and she was very clear about like, hey, college is next? Or was that always put in your mind? Because my parents were just like, yeah, when you're 18, you do what you want,
There's a lot of parental fantasy in my journey. I'm an only child. My mom and my dad, they never even really dated, quite frankly. They were cool, they were, friends and they liked each other. And, I'm sure they hung out or whatever, but I wouldn't.
Apparently they had sex.
Yeah, obviously. But yeah. I grew up, in a very interesting way. I grew up just, mostly around my mother's side of the family. I didn't really spend that much time with my dad, although I knew he was there. And, but yeah, knowing that my mom and my dad weren't really together and having a lot of influence from my mom in my life, I grew up in what's sort of, if there's any young Black men growing up in a single family household, they'll feel me what I'm saying. You grew up in sort of a benevolent dictatorship, because your parent wants the best for you but you sort of grow up wanting to please them, and you grow up starting to learn that people pleasing is sort of the way to be, and so I've done what I was expected to do, coming from the son of an educator in high school. I've got a good GPA, in the honors classes, accepted to college. And so being that I really didn't have a choice as to where I wanted to go, and it was kind of chosen for me, the idea was just, okay, I'm going to go to the Claremont colleges. I'm going to rock out at Pittsburgh College, and, I'm going to make her proud, and I spent a lot of time in my 20s, even because I felt like college was an expectation that at 6 years old, I knew that was the expectation,
right?
So me graduating from college, I just saw it's really interesting because so many people are like, oh wow, I'm so proud of you, Jumane. I'm like, well, if I didn't do this, you guys would have been talking shit about me.
Yeah, I did what I was supposed to do, right?
Yeah, I did what I was supposed to do, and so I after a few jobs and feeling that sort of glass ceiling after I graduated, yeah, I felt like, okay, well, I gotta go to graduate school, and I guess that's what I gotta do, and that's how I'm gonna, sort of make my mom proud and put myself, in a better position. And they taught us this in the 80s, and we're starting to see that that's not really true. They taught us this, that like, hey, college, graduate school, money,
right?
Yeah, and they really, spoon fed that to us, and you're young, you believe it.
Yeah. Because those $100,000 jobs just grow on trees. All you got to do is go to college and it'll be fine.
Right. And yeah. And then when you need some more education, yeah, you put that doctor on your name or whatever, you put that other, you get that other degree, and then, yeah, companies just come and they want you and they say, oh yeah, you're, and I realized that was not the case. And what was really interesting, I graduated. So I went to Oregon, got my law degree, got my MBA.
What does that look like, by the way? Because I know people that struggle to get through an MBA program. I know people that really struggle to get through their Juris Doctorate, and you did both. That's insane, man.
Yeah. My aunt's husband, he said, I was 15. He kind of sat me down. He said, hey, look, get a JD, you get an MBA. Companies they just want you, and because you have that degree, it's like, doesn't matter what your experience is in that industry, you'll be able to do something, that's of value to them. And I was 15, I believed it, and so I decided, I wasn't totally sure I wanted to go to graduate school, but when I was feeling the glass ceiling from the jobs that I had in my early 20s, I felt like, okay, because I started off working for this publishing company. Well, no, hold on. But back before that, because I was a film production major, I was trying to kind of make my way in the entertainment industry. I had a few little internships, but then 9/11 comes, and like they're kind of all that internship stuff that, we're just rolling with the people that we got.
Goes away, yeah.
Like, you're going to be waiting a long time if you just want to, continue with this little internship thing. So I had a part-time job at a publishing company. They had a video production department. I got hired doing sales, but I was like, I'll finagle my way in there, and when I realized that when they tell you it's not what you know, it's who you know, that's not the complete definition. That's only half the definition, actually. It's who do you know that wants to help you in your career, you know? So it's not what do you know, it's who do you know, but also who do you know that really wants to help you? Because I met a lot of people who could help me, but didn't necessarily want to help me. And then I met a lot of people who wanted to help me, but didn't have the power or the resources, you know, to help me, you know, sort of break through that sort of glass ceiling. And so I start to kind of see this in my early 20s at the publishing company. My mom would begged me to take the CBEST. I had no desire to take the CBEST, which is the basic test for being a teacher here in California. But she begged me to do it. You know, I'm an obedient son. You know, you follow your parents' direction. So I took the test, realizing that I had passed it, and I'm working for a publishing company that teaches teachers how to teach. I'm like, yeah, fuck this job. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If you're not going to let me, you know, or at least show me a pathway to like a career that I'm comfortable with here in this company, I'm going to, you know, kick rocks and I'm going to go elsewhere. And so because I figured out you can pretty much make the same amount of money as a substitute teacher as you could doing what I was doing at the time, working sales in the publishing company. So I start teaching. And I look at teaching in a totally different way because I had a double major in college. I was a film production major and a business management major, you know, essentially. And so I looked at it as consulting. Like this was me, like cutting my teeth, eventually going to get that job at Ernst & Young or something like that, you know.
Right.
And I just started looking at
building the resume, taking care of kids, but you're going to consult them.
But well, in a way that seeing consulting not necessarily as I'm serving the school district. You know, there's a problem. Consultants put out fires. There's a fire. You know, I knew that I didn't necessarily want to be an everyday regular classroom teacher. I like the idea of having a different challenge every day, working with different students, and just trying to do the best that I could in that day to give them some education. And really, if I was really good, I would be able to teach them something that they wouldn't get at a or that they would only get like maybe at a high level private school or something like that. You know, if I was really got locked in with the right students in the right kind of situation. And I enjoyed that challenge. But I started off in elementary school, which was the wrong move, because I realized that I'm not a nurturer.
Yeah. You need to talk to adults.
Yeah. Well, and so so my mom kind of helped me kind of get my foot in LAUSD. I end up, you know, schools have situations every year where people get pregnant, people leave. There's all sorts of, you know, core cracking kind of incidents that happen in schools. And so there's a need for long-term subs. When you work 21 days consecutively as a long-term sub, there's a significant pay increase. So I'm hunting for long-term sub jobs. I'm getting some experience in teaching, but this is what my mom did. You know, I'm really just trying to get to the next level, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, it's graduate school for me at the time. So,
isn't it crazy how much of our life, even as an adult, and you know, I have a little bit of a strained relationship with my parents. They're great people, but you know, we've had our ups and downs. But how much we still do, you know, we're talking about being 41, 42. That's just like downloaded from your youth of like, oh, I got to work hard like dad, or I got to please mom. And it's like, it's crazy how there's just nobody more influential than your parents. I don't give a shit what anybody says, good, bad, or indifferent.
Good, bad, or indifferent. And yeah, that's the thing, because I have a great relationship, you know, with my mother and my family. You know, but it's interesting, go through life and you see that other people don't have that necessarily. You know, some people have really challenging relationships with their parents, and it's just like, wow, you know, it gives you pause. But yeah, I'm looking at schools. For me, just getting into law school was such a big deal at the time, and this is 2005. I'm not sure that I want to go in 2005 because teaching takes a lot out of you. I'm working 70-hour weeks as a sub. You actually. The significant pay increases because they throw so much shit at you.
Of course.
And you're expected to perform just like the regular teachers. So the regular teachers, they kind of know what their program is as a sub. You're kind of just like putting it all together. So I had a really unique assignment. I had 3 different classes. It's one thing when you teach the same class, you know, 5 periods a day. I was teaching 3 different classes, different levels of ESL. And so school is ending in late June. law school starts early August. I haven't even told my roommates and, everything like goodbye or, kind of figured out all that stuff. So I actually defer for 2006. And then August 2005, this is in like June, July. Then August, I get a phone call, and the guy that was my, whatever they call it, your host or whatever when you make a visit, because Oregon, what's interesting about them is that they know that they have a racist history out there in Oregon. Black people could not buy land in Oregon, and it was written into their constitution, wasn't actually effectively removed until the 60s.
Holy shit. Dude, I remember when I first started doing loans, and every once in a while, I started doing loans in 2000, you would see this come up on a deed, in Glendale. If some family had owned the house for 40 years, and you would see there would be a deed restriction from the deed that was, filed in the 50s or 60s. Do not sell to Negroes or will not ever be possessed by Negroes. And I was like, holy fuck, man. That's the first time it really crystallized in my mind. Like, you learn this shit in high school, right? But it's like
until you experience it, Joe Rogan likes to joke, the Civil War was only 6 people ago. Your grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, it was only 6 people ago. But then you see it on a deed that I'm working on a loan in 2002, and I'm like, the first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? And you don't, spoiler alert, I'm not black. So you don't grow up with that feeling or that understanding. And then all of a sudden you see it in black and white, and you're like, oh, we still have a lot of problems, just like one person ago in this country. So, okay. So Eugene, Oregon, or the University of Oregon's hard pressed to get you. Yeah. And what's interesting is I have locks at the time. I have locks now, obviously, but there's a guy with locks. So you go to these little law school conferences, right? This is one of the, like the Sheraton at the LAX or something like that. And I'm so shocked that the guy from Oregon has locks, a black dude. And we kind of make that black people like eye contact, and he's like, oh, come here.
He's like, you got dreads, I got dreads, we got to talk.
Come here. And, because for me, I knew that I was qualified, but I didn't know if I would really get into like a law school with like a recognizable name, you know what I mean? And like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to, fly by night, law school just to sort of be in it. But yeah, the University of Oregon is, and I also didn't want to necessarily stay in LA. I figured that, I was open to it if that was the best school for me, but being in my mid 20s at that time, I was like, LA's great, but LA's also, your strength is your weakness and your weakness is your strength, right? Because you can do everything here. There's less of a desire to leave, because there's so much stuff to explore. You can devote a lifetime to just exploring all the little stuff, around LA, with, tons of money, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm deciding like, I could easily be insulated here my whole life. Let me figure out what life is like, and let's see what life is like somewhere else. So the university is they like me, and I realize I'm qualified, but I'm black, and that's a big thing out there. They really want a more diverse culture out there in the Pacific Northwest. I didn't understand that, but until I really got out there and I saw it for myself. But I had a really interesting experience my very first week of law school. I got a Malcolm X t-shirt on, because I'm figuring like, okay, like we're gonna see what's going on here. I know that I'm a black person in an overwhelmingly white state, but I'm here for the right reasons. I'm here because I want to be here. The people at the school want me. They gave me a scholarship. Like, okay, let's see how this goes. So I got
most importantly, you're qualified.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm here at the law school. I got this Malcolm X t-shirt. Let's see what happens as I'm walking through the campus. And an older white man, about 100 feet away from me, starts walking my direction. I'm walking his direction. We're walking towards each other. I'm thinking, I can tell he can see my t-shirt, and I'm thinking like, okay, what's going on through his mind? I'm not really sure. When we're about 10 feet away, he makes eye contact with me, smiles, says, "Good morning, young man," and kept on walking. And I didn't even really say good morning back. I was so kind of like taken aback because, in that experience, who was the one with the racial problem? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was like, okay, like I don't need to be looking for this kind of, I'm here, but I don't need to be like looking for stuff. I just do your thing, and Oregon was good for that. I only saw a couple Confederate flags in the rural parts. quite frankly. And I interacted mostly with people in Eugene, people in Portland. You know, I didn't really spend too much time in the rural sections of Oregon, but in the sections of Oregon that I was at, it was cool. You know, people,
Yeah.
they know that they're overwhelmingly white, and they appreciate the diverse, aspect that you'll bring, even if you're going to just be there temporarily. You know, they kind of know that, people come to the school, they may or may not, want to stay there, but um, they wanted me to stay in Oregon for sure. I could have. I kind of think about what my life might have been like because I had a lot of social capital there, but I had it sort of in my mind. I got this sports marketing degree. I'm an MBA. I'm a JD. Either the Trailblazers, Nike, because they have their corporate office out there, Adidas. One of these like blue chip sort of companies is going to hire me. Otherwise, I'm just going back to LA.
Yeah.
And I came back to LA. And this is 2009, graduating, and it's me versus the bar exam, And the thing is that I really wasn't sure that I wanted to be a lawyer, quite frankly, because when I was in graduate school, I didn't realize this. When you're an applicant, your summer job and all that kind of stuff is extremely significant, and it's extremely competitive, because people need legal work, but who's going to pay you, for that? And it's like, and the qualification process and all that stuff. I go out to Oregon. I'm homeless my first semester. It's a long story, but the guy who hosted me had a little thing where he was the fraternity advisor at one of the fraternities there at the university, and they have like sort of graduate style living within the fraternity house, but it's like kind of like a little apartment of your own.
Yeah, you're the big mountain campus in graduate school, right?
Sort of, yeah, and you get a chance to sort of live there, and your room and board is paid for. And so I thought I was going to get that thing seamlessly when I started. That's why I started early instead of the deferring thing. And then wish I had actually deferred. I mean, there's no regrets. I mean, it made me who I am in essence, but I was homeless for my first semester, more or less.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and my grades suffered. I didn't get quite. I finished school and everything, but I didn't quite get the grades that I would have liked to have gotten that I knew I was capable of if I had more of a living kind of situation, kind of figured out and settled in for myself. And that's why I wanted that extra year. Why I wanted to start in 2006, because I thought, okay, teaching is taking a lot out of me, but if I have a year to prepare for it and a year to kind of think about, graduate school, that's like more time to kind of prepare myself. But I put myself in a really difficult situation, and the chips fell where they may. I ended up, quasi homeless the first semester. Second semester,
I mean, how crazy is that? That juxtaposition of like, I've made it, I'm in law school, I'm a badass. Oh, and I'm sleeping in my car and doing couch surfing because we kind of had a logistical fuck up on the housing. Like, that's nuts, man.
Yeah, I mean, that same deal came through my last 3 years, or 4 years, but because your JD MBA, it's a 4-year program. So my first year there, it didn't work out. The latter 3, it did, which I was grateful for. And the fraternity that I was with, they made me an honorary member. Like, they really embraced me. And
you don't have like a brand on your arm, dude?
No.
Because every time I see that, I just cry. I'm like, God damn, that looks painful.
No brand, but I do have a chapter number, and they still keep me like into the student, into the fraternity like insights and all that kind of stuff. So that was an interesting experience. But so I finished school. I'm back to LA. I'm studying for the bar, but I'm not really sure if I want to be a lawyer. But I know that if I want to have that asset, I've got to take that test. I got to, pass that exam.
And by the way, you graduate from this 4-year program, 2009, which is obviously, leaves people like you and I, people of a certain age. I'm just hitting my professional stride. My 401k disappears. Washington Mutual goes bankrupt. Nobody knows if they're going to have a job. There's sure as hell no MBA or law jobs beating down anybody's door in 2009 because everybody's laying off. Like,
and actually, this is the weird thing. In the early 2010s, I'm experiencing the opposite of what I expected from having a degree. When I tell people I'm a JD and I'm an MBA, the people who are doing the hiring, who are higher up in the company, they look at me and they're like, oh shit. to take my job in a couple of years.
Yeah, take your job, or overqualified. You're going to be there for 6 months, post up, and then as soon as they train you, you're gonna leave for greener pastures. Like,
so it's like, yo, I have an entry level position for you. Okay, are you happy with that? Are you comfortable with that? Okay, but that's what I'm giving you. And it's just, and I thought, that having those degrees, having that sort of whatever that's supposed to give you, I thought that there was more to that, but it especially in that time, in that climate, it worked against me seemingly. And it's like, oh, like I would have been more interested in you if you were just someone who graduated with an undergrad degree. I feel like you're not a threat to me, but you've got there's all this training, and it's like, oh shit, like I'm not gonna take my job.
Yeah,
I'm gonna if even if I am gonna hire you, I'm gonna let you know like you're low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the way it felt working for the Clippers. I thought, I mean, and this is during the Donald Sterling era, but I'm still thinking, hey, I'm good with people. I'm a smart guy. I'll get in. I'll charm them. They'll see how qualified I am. They'll, the stuff that I've learned in my MBA will start to kick in. People will start to see that and value that. And then the NBA lockout hit.
Yeah, how long were you with the Clippers before? God, man, bad luck, dude.
Well, and the thing is, it's right when the Clippers started to gain some respectability. This is the very beginning of the Blake Griffin era.
Yeah.
And, he had his best seasons, early in his career. He was a highlight reel, dunking all over the place. And so it was interesting to be a part of that group during that time. We're selling Blake Griffin. We're selling excitement, lob passes, high-flying dunks, a new era in the Clippers, We're making the playoffs. We're not just,
you beat the Lakers for the first time, like regularly.
Yeah, like this is a team that's expected to make the playoffs and to compete. And, this is what we're selling. And it's like, yeah, this is kind of cool. I'm into this. And I was employee of the month 2 months in a row, April, May 2011. And then the lockout happened that summer.
And, now we're coming in 2021. Everybody's kind of experienced this where, oh, your job can just go away overnight because of the year that we just dealt with in COVID. But going back to 2011, it's like, all right, we're coming out of the 2009 crisis. Things are back on track. The fact that anybody has a job in 2011 where they're, sorry, you're out. It's over. Like the industry doesn't exist for the next few months at least.
Yeah. I mean, they had us working still. They gave us work to do. But, you're trying to sell season tickets for a season that doesn't actually exist. Technically. I mean, there's a belief that it's going to exist.
Right.
People don't expect professional athletes just to sit on the sidelines forever. People expect this labor dispute to work out. But at the same time, people just telling you no.
Well, I'm just thinking, right? If the Lakers went into if the NBA went into another lockout and you're trying to call me for season tickets, my first response is going to be like, yeah, fuck you. These guys making $25 million a year. That's not enough. They're gonna lock out. Forget about not buying season tickets. I don't even know if I'm a fan anymore. Yeah. Right?
Don't call me anymore.
Yeah, that's a tough product to sell.
And especially like telemarketers calling your phone, like you look for any excuse for tell them not to call you. So. That was really tough. And what had happened was in between all that, I took a month off to study for the bar exam again. It's my third time taking it. Unlike the previous two times where I took it and I devoted my full attention to it. Another thing about the first two times that I took it, I underestimated moving back to LA from Oregon while I'm studying for the bar and how hard that is. Like how, I've been away for 4 years. People, you graduated, everybody wants to see you. People want to, and I'm back, in a place where there's people that I know, and
there's a lot of parties.
And it's like, it was really tough to kind of focus your attention to, a lot of change in 4 years. And one of the biggest things I noticed, because when I left in 2005, there were no dispensaries. In 2009, they're all over the place. And I'm like, wow, like they actually sell weed like legally on the street? Like, no, this wasn't happening when I was here.
I mean, you had to go to a doctor and tell him your back was hurting, but it was effectively, no holds barred. Like I remember buddies of mine who were 25 who were like prime physical shape of their life. They're like, yeah, man, I just tell the doctor my back hurts and I get my medical marijuana card. I'm like, what? And I'm pretty much a libertarian. My thought is do whatever the fuck you want to do. Somebody wants to come to my garage and shoot up heroin. I don't know if we're going to do that in my garage, but if you want to do that in the privacy of your own home, you do what you want. So for me, I was always like, well, first of all, why isn't this legal? And then when they made it quasi legal and it was so easy to get a medical marijuana card, I'm like, come on guys, this is silly. this is just silly. So so you discovered the weed business, and
well, I hadn't quite discovered the weed business yet. I mean, I just discovered that it was an actual business, and that there were actual people were paying rent, off of like whatever agreements they had with their landlord, and the fact that they were doing business at that particular establishment. And that blew my mind. I thought you had to go to Amsterdam for that kind of shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And here we are in Los Angeles, California in 2009. And I'm like, wow, this is how it is now. But yeah, so it's 2011. I take the bar a third time. I didn't pass, but the thing is, it's so weird studying for the bar, preparing for the bar. You really have to set yourself up for 6 months, basically, because you're going to spend a couple of months preparing. You're going to take the exam, and then you're going to spend a couple of months just waiting for your results. And you can't really look for jobs or any other kind of thing, while you're doing that. Unless your uncle's a lawyer, right? You're whatever, or you've got some other kind of hustle, or you got some other kind of family business, where people keep you busy.
I got a question about that, about taking the bar. Do you think it was a detriment that you did 4 years and you focused on getting the MBA and because really your mind's kind of divided, right? You're doing finance over here, law over here, where if you just said...
That was actually a really big deal for me during law school. I remember... This is just one experience, but it's a great way to sort of illumine the whole thing. In Eugene, Oregon, the home football games for the University of Oregon Fighting Ducks football team is a huge thing. It's basically like a convention. It's a state convention, and it happens 6 times a year, the home football game. So I'm invited to the law school tailgate, and I'm invited to the business school tailgate. And you would think like, oh, okay, yeah, you just go to both, right? You spend an hour there, you spend an hour there. It's not that easy, and it's like, you're there, you're somewhere. People are like, why are you leaving? What's going on? And then I'm leaving, I'm going to this other one. Oh, why are you late? There's not enough food. Are you sure you're eating? Or, it's like being split into both things. It was like, it was cool, but it also felt, like I wasn't able to quite really immerse myself.
Yeah, you're like half pregnant.
Sort of, yeah, and that's sort of the way that I was treated. Because when I thought about this program, other schools have like a JD MBA sort of program, and what I thought that the university's program was, they present it as a program, meaning that there's going to be like sort of a mentorship throughout it all, but it's not really a program. It's an agreement that the two colleges have. There's a college of law and a college of business at the university. The two colleges have an agreement. Take this number of classes, you qualify, you get the JD MBA, and that's what it is. There's no sort of mentorship, or there's no sort of guidance, throughout that process, understanding that you're not just a law student, you're not just a business student, you're a JD MBA student. And yeah, there wasn't any of that there. So so you have your law school people, you have your, just like high school, right?
Yeah, totally, right.
You have your law school people, you have your business school people, and what happened was, there's no set way for how you sort of organize your coursework. I spent, typically what they do, you spend 1 year law school, 1 year business school or whatever, and then you take 2 years kind of taking a combination of the courses. I spent 2 years actually in law school, because there were some prerequisites that I needed in order to get accepted into the university's program. And that's where one of my summers went, when I was in school. And so everybody else has got their sort of fancy law summer job, and I'm sitting there like taking some math classes, to get ready for business school, but I'm not complaining or anything. This is what I want, this direction that I'm going. But yeah, I didn't realize how stratified, that both of the schools were, and how unique of an experience that would be. Because I wasn't totally immersed. I was in the shallow end, on both programs. I never really went deep, or as deep as I would have liked to have gone. So when I'm studying, I'm realizing like this is stuff that I did 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And it's like, it's not fresh. And I also too, I was a little bit spoiled coming from being an educator, going to law school, or being in graduate school. I had my own sorts of ideas and premonitions on what education should be, especially because I was a sub. And being a sub, they don't necessarily care if you follow the program as far as like what the standards are, for education. Are the students quiet? Are they learning? Are there no disruptions going on in your classroom? So I had a chance to create a lot of my own curriculum. essentially. And I loved it. It was extra work for me, but I wasn't down with what some of the books were trying to teach. I really wanted to teach kids like the real, sort of truth and to the best of my ability. And so that's, having that sort of freedom educationally to create curriculum and to teach it a certain way and to really see students get it. And graduate school is not like that. And well, I shouldn't say that, not necessarily for business school, but for law school, everything's antiquated. Law is all about what happened in the past. Right. And even though there have been technological developments that help with legal research, the way that law is practiced has not changed in hundreds of years. And that's not true for other disciplines. Yeah. Practices of medicine have changed with technology. They're not practicing medicine the same way they're practicing medicine 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. Feel me? They're not. Everything that has a specialization has changed over time, but with the law, there's so much. It's called stare decisis. It is sort of the legal term. It means to keep things the way that they are, or really, by definition, to follow precedent. And so there's nothing going to be changed without precedent. For doing so. But it's like, law school is antiquated. That Socratic method got the fucking internet now. Asking why this and why that. And, we really they should have been teaching us how to prepare for the bar in our first year of law school, quite frankly. We take these subjective tests where you're basically supposed to just sort of data dump. That's another thing they don't tell you when you're a law school applicant. A lot of your success is dictated on how well you can type. Period.
I'm a badass typer.
If you can type really fast, you have an inherent advantage. You know what I mean? And my typing skills were not bad, but they were not great.
Right.
And I really had to improve my typing skills because when these exams are 3 hours long, there's like 1 or 2 questions and you're just expected to just data dump and just write a 15, 20 page paper. So in 3 hours.
This is going to 100% get our YouTube channel canceled. But when I was working in the mortgage business, this group came in because they were going to write a program for our company to, I don't know, CRM or something like this, some technology tool. And they needed to get, they had a bunch of developers, they had a bunch of VC money, but they had to bring the coders in to be like, hey, Scott, what's this mean on loans? What do you do this? So somehow our branch got nominated. Mm-hmm. And the fastest typer I've ever met was this Chinese cat who was a programmer, and he was a dwarf, or he was a little person. And so he had to stand on the chair in our conference room, leaning over his MacBook. And this dude could type somewhere around 150 words a minute. And he had really small hands. And I know we're going to get canceled for this, but I had a hard time sitting in a meeting with him because it was funny. I mean, he's just a little person standing on the chair, typing at like rapid speed. And he would look at me and we would be talking. And I mean, he has to be one of the smartest human beings I've ever met. He would be synthesizing the information I was telling him about mortgages, thinking about how that should visually look, for the user experience, and then typing it in code. And I was like, I just looked at him one time. I was like, you're a fucking robot, aren't you? And he just started laughing. And I'm like, first of all, I've never seen anybody type that fast from dictation, much less like computing what I'm talking about and putting it into your system. That guy would have been great at law school, man. Baddest typer I ever saw. Typist.
And that's the thing. The way that they assess you, the way that law school is, taking the bar is totally different. There's an objective section on the bar. It's, A, B, C, or D. And one of those is right. And only one of those is right, and they don't actually assess you that way when you're in law school. How ass backwards is that?
Yeah, most education, right?
When that is the standard that's going to help you to pass and be a professional, but they never, ever teach you that. You actually have to pay for that as an additional course after you graduate.
Yeah. But luckily, you had a buddy in the weed business who needed some contracts reviewed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm really humbled at this point because nothing seems to be working out for me. And I'm still just kind of thinking that, okay, if I pass this bar exam, maybe something might change. But a friend of mine hit me up on Facebook, a buddy of mine from elementary school, and he's like, hey, man, I noticed that we're back in the same city now. We should get together for lunch. I'm like, of course, good buddy from elementary school who I haven't seen in 20-something years. Of course we should, and what's so crazy is that I'm going to continue with this story, but as a brief aside, when I am leaving Oregon, driving to California, A buddy of mine lives in Southern Oregon from elementary school, and he resettled out there. I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but I said, hey, I'm going from Portland to LA. I want to stop at your place for the night, and just kind of see you and hang out and spend the night at your place before I get back on the road. He's like, yeah, of course, man. Here's my address. Come on. So I don't really know what he's doing professionally, but got his own house and a lot of land out here in Oregon. I'm like, man, what are you doing? He's like, would you like to go downstairs? And he retrofitted, a single family home where the whole downstairs was a weed grow. I was just like, wow, like you're doing this like professionally, like this is what you do. It's like, yeah. And it was just like, wow. And I didn't know that was going to be a preview, for what was going to happen later on in my life. And so at this lunchtime meeting with my other friend from elementary school, and he's like, yeah, I work in the cannabis industry. And I'm like, not only do you work, but you have your own company. You're the principal. You're the, you're the CEO. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And he tells me, I'm one of the first people to figure out how to put cannabis in the formula for, vaporization, to use with any kind of standard vape device.
And what year is this?
This is 2012.
2012. Yeah, like vapes don't even come into my consciousness until like 15 or 16. So this guy was way ahead of the curve.
The first time I ever saw a vape was 2009, and it was like brand new, and it was like they were selling them to, people like, hey, you can use this anywhere and, quit smoking, kind of thing. But it still was like not that popular. And then someone showed me like, hey, they figured it out for weed. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But I didn't know that a friend of mine actually did that,
right.
As, Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday too. That's what he does. And I'm just like, wow, okay. And so I just, I told him, I'm like, hey man, I've got all this, education. I've got all this marketing knowledge and, business knowledge. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. You're my buddy, and this is a really cool industry that you've, put yourself in. And he took me up on that. And I did some, volunteer little consulting projects in the summer of 2012 just to kind of help him. And I noticed that he wanted to stay focused on making the actual product. He needed someone to take the product to the streets, and to actually go to the dispensaries, talk to the people, show them the product and all that. And I said, wow, yeah, that's a pretty interesting opportunity. You didn't necessarily present it to me like that. I sort of had to just kind of come in there. I was supposed to be part-time, right? And then I saw that he needed more help, than he was, than those hours he was willing to pay me for.
Because at the time, hadn't you switched over from working for the Clippers after they do their lockout? You switched over to the NFL Network for a while?
Yeah, I was at the NFL Network, and I was, again, same kind of thing. I kind of felt that glass ceiling. They said, hey, we're only going to hire you for this seasonal thing, knowing, that I had a background in sports marketing and had an MBA. But yeah, I maybe I could have stuck it out. Maybe I could have possibly gotten a job, but the way that thing works, NFL seasons are short, and there's a lot of people in there that are just sort of seasonal, so after the holidays, into December, into January, like, hey, we'll see you next year, kind of thing. And then they have a lot of people there who are, they work with the NFL Network, but they don't necessarily work for the NFL Network. And so there's a lot of that kind of going on. I was trying to navigate my way through that, but my friend told me, hey, on a Friday, hey, I know you're doing this NFL thing. What are you doing? Do you have an interview on Monday by chance? No.
Right. Season's over, dude. No more Monday Night Football. I ain't got shit to do for about 8 months.
He's like, look, man, I've seen what you can do. You've helped me out a tremendous deal already. But, I know you've been doing it just out of the kindness of your heart. I'm going to pay you this time. I'm expanding. People are really catching on. I really need you,
And excuse me. What's the, sounds like I'm smoking weed. What's the landscape of marijuana at this point? So we're talking, 2010, 2011. I know it's medicinally approved, but there's this big fight between, federal government still says no, state governments still say yes. Obviously your legal background helps you navigate this with him. Yeah. But what's the, cause I'm not big in the industry, and I think I'm actually allergic to THC. I'm all about some CBD gummies, but THC makes me just puke my guts out. So like, it's just not been on my radar. What's the landscape of like the weed business or the weed community in LA in 2011.
So if you've got a recommendation from a doctor, you're allowed to have a certain amount of cannabis on you. You're also allowed to grow a certain amount of plants in your home. Pretty much the way that it is, now, with the law just standardized, and it applies to everybody, whether or not you have a card. That being said, people are able to form quote unquote collectives where they don't actually sell anything. They promote their products through these cooperatives, these other cooperatives, and the co-ops can sort of work together, right? And so you being a medical patient, you being a patient at a certain co-op, you're allowed to work with patients from other co-ops, right, quote unquote, and you don't sell products, they donate.
Got it.
And so, so that's sort of the way that it works. And, you're allowed to do business anywhere in the state.
Yeah. Because it's all kind of at that time, early 2010s, whatever we're calling those 20 teens. It's kind of like there's still the black market. And now there's kind of this white market where it's quasi legal in the state, but then a lot of people are playing in the gray market. Because I remember, you don't have to give away any trade secrets, but I remember a lot of people like, I have a co-op at my house where I'm growing 250 plants for these, 25 people. Wink, wink, nod, nod, and then somehow magically the plants get wiped out. They get in the trunk of a car, and then we sell them to a dispensary. I'm like, this all seems weird. Can't we just legalize all this shit? But that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how it was going, right? There was like,
and then there's the waste of police resources when they could be out doing other stuff, and they're busting people who are growing plants.
Yeah, it's silly. It's silly.
A danger to the community. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Guess what? Nobody's ever got so high that they killed someone. Like it just doesn't happen.
Actually, and you. Even if you ingested a shitload of THC, your body just goes to sleep. You'll just be asleep, really. Like there's no, it's not going to poison you or kill you. It'll just, turn off your ability, to be, lucid or whatever, aware. But it's not going to kill you. It's a substance that, it's just like anything else. It's like, and it wasn't always illegal. Right. In the 1800s, doctors were prescribing cannabis indica. Right. If you look at the, in the early days before the pharmaceutical industry really came and took a hold and took power in this country, you had doctors making their own little formulas, and a lot of the times, they were using cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, the whole thing is crazy to me, because I was actually looking up the stat the other day for something that I read on a podcast, and it was more than 50% of violent crime perpetrators and people that are a victim of violent crime happens because there's alcohol involved. Whether it's rape, whether it's murder, whether it's assault, whether it's vehicular manslaughter, it's like more than 50% of the people that commit the crimes and are a victim of the crime are because of alcohol. And that's the number one sponsor of every American event. The Super Bowl, everybody looks forward to the beer commercials. Yeah. And somehow that has continued to stay legal because they have a great lobby.
Well, here's the thing.
It's crazy. And marijuana somehow was illegal for 100 years.
The stuff that's marketed is the stuff that you don't need. Either things that are self-destructive or unhealthy for you. That's why they're marketed, right? To convince you that, you need that, right? Yeah. And I'm not trying to be like a straight edge. I drink. I'm about to fire up this joint on tape. You know what I mean? It's like, we're doing what we're doing here. I'm sipping on some tequila, But I'm just saying, it's like the hypocrisy has just gone on for a really long time, And it's we have to make some changes in that, and it's only so long before you've got to make it federally legal. There are other countries who are now exporting it, right? And so those countries want American weed.
We got good weed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like American weed is light years ahead of the shit you buy from Mexico.
California. But yeah. I mean, but a lot of that too is marketing too. I mean, that the SoCal image is one of the most sold things in the world, And I know a lot of people in Northern California who probably hear this podcast, are grumbling because of that. But no, I mean, it's really a California thing. I mean, you talk about, Humboldt County, Mendocino County, those places are known in the community throughout the world.
Yeah.
Being some of the best places, where cannabis is grown.
Yeah, my birthday's on 3/11, so I was always a big fan of the band 3/11.
Yeah.
And like half their first albums, or half of their first two albums, they're just singing about how all the best stuff comes from Humboldt. And this was back in 95, 97, we were in high school, and like that was my first exposure to like, oh, Humboldt County here in California, that's the weed capital. And I'm like, they make all the good shit.
I gotta give you credit too, man, because you exposed me to 311 and Rage Against the Machine, and I'm not saying anything bad about 311, but I didn't really necessarily listen to that, but I really got into Rage Against the Machine like years later. Years after you exposed it to me, but I remember you were the first person to expose it to me, and then listening to it with you, I was like, whoa, this dude's just rapping.
Yeah, totally.
And he's just rapping to a different kind of a beat, but he's just rapping.
He's a real angry rapper.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, I like this. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my buddies, Eddie, who that we went to high school with, I remember after their third out, they did very few albums, but after Evil Empire came out, he's like, these guys are mainstream now, and Zach De La Rocha lives in Orange County and he drives a Land Cruiser. They're not going to be Rage Against the Machine anymore. Like you can't be rageful when you're living in Newport driving a Land Rover. And sure enough, they never came out with another great album. Yeah. So they had their moment in time at Cal State Northridge where they were badass and they were angry and they were suffering and they were struggling and they had that artist struggle. And then you get rich. It's kind of hard to be rageful anymore.
Yeah. And that's the thing about being an artist. You have to kind of trick yourself. The really, really great artists have figured out a way to sort of trick themselves and figured out a way to stay hungry and to really like approach their craft with that same sort of tenacity, that they approached it with before they were nothing.
Yeah. We were talking about Kanye before we went live, and he's one of those guys where everybody thinks he's a weirdo. They think he's a freak. It's like, no, he just has to stay in that artist mode of like creativity, or whether it's anger, or whether it's like him fighting against the man. Now he is the man. He's probably a billionaire, but he's got to do something to trick his mind into still being creative and not getting lazy, right?
They said he's a billionaire, right? But it's not. It's based on like if he sold everything, right? Or like future sort of projections. But hey, you say what you want to say about him. He has opinions. People listen. He likes things to be a certain way. People value that, and whether it's fashion, whether it's music, he's iconic in both of those things, whether you like it or not. And more power to him.
Yeah. You working for the Clippers, and then go ahead and fire that up, man, if you want to. We can smoke anything in here. Working for the Clippers, working for the NFL Network. Oh yeah, for sure. And then, I know you've just been around that entertainment industry. Anybody who you've met who's interesting, who you're like, oh man, that was my LA experience. That one night I got to party with so-and-so. Anybody you've met that's just like a crazy story?
Can't say I've got like crazy stories. I've been around, certain people and stood next to them. And so I was on set, Mad TV, and a guy got me sort of an opportunity. I didn't get paid or anything to be there, but I got allowed to be in the building, while they're shooting. And Tyra Banks is the guest star, for that time. And so here I am. I'm like, I want to get with Tyra Banks too.
Yeah, she's like one of the hottest women ever.
I'm this like 21, 22-year-old kid. I'm not even like, working on set, and I stood next to her for about a good like 5 or 10 minutes, and I wanted to say something, but every guy who was an actor or whatever like wanted to talk to her and just kept on like trying to talk to her, and I was just I didn't say anything to her. I let her just do her thing, but I stood next to her for about a good 5 or 10 minutes. She's really tall.
Yeah,
she's really tall. You're talking about Kanye. We were talking about the Kardashians earlier. When I was working for the Clippers, actually before I started working for the Clippers, I had an assignment with a Korean basketball website, and I got a press pass to cover the 2010 NBA Finals. So I'm at halftime in the Staples Center. It's amazing. When you go to the lower bowl, because I had the press pass, I had the camera, I was paparazzi, for 45 minutes or whatever. Chris Rock, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Kim Kardashian, Steven Spielberg, like all these people just just chatting it up, just rubbing elbows, and I was just like, wow. And I took a picture of Kim Kardashian, and it was like, she's gorgeous in person. She's like, you think, okay, you've seen her on TV or whatever. I saw her in real life with my own eyes. Wow, she has like an aura. Like, it was just incredible.
This is back when Lamar Odom was dating one of the Kardashians, right? And they were all.
I think this is like slightly before, because I think they started dating a little bit later after his career like was over. I think I don't know. I'm not an expert on that whole thing, but yeah, she is as advertised. I'll say that about her, because I took a couple pictures, a little paparazzi thing, and just looking at her just with my own eyes was just like, wow, she's got a certain kind of je ne sais quoi, that like when she was just walking along the baseline, and I just happened to be on the baseline, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna just take some pictures, and yeah, I just couldn't take my eyes off her. It was like, wow.
That was your chance to make a move, man. You have a much better chance of picking up on Kim Kardashian than I do. She's more on your side of the table than mine.
Well, it's interesting. I've seen other celebrities, and in person, they're not that attractive. They're not that attractive. I'm not gonna say no names, and I got one name that I could really say. But
we'll be nice.
Yeah, I'll tell that story to you in private. But yeah, I've seen some people in person, and they do not. You can tell. Okay, so I was on The Price is Right when I was 18 years old with Bob Barker, and there must have been an inch of makeup on that man.
Yeah, well, he was effectively dead.
Oh my God.
He did that show until he was like 80 or something.
I can't believe women were kissing him, like, or whatever. Like, that was a part of the little tradition of the show. Like, when you get up close to him and you see how much makeup, I was like, is it Halloween? I mean, and I love Bob Barker. Don't get me wrong. He's still alive. He might listen to this podcast. Bob, I love you, man. I just wish I could have spent more time with you after the taping of the show, quite frankly, because I thought when I won the show, like, I was entitled to like go to the green room or something and like, have a little whiskey with Bob Barker or something, But no, when the show is done, at best, he'll give you like a picture, not even an autograph picture, just like you get a little headshot, Bob Barker if you want. But yeah,
it's so funny that like most of the people I know that have grown up in LA have some of these weird experiences where it's like, yeah, I was on The Price is Right, or I ran into Kim Kardashian. My crazy one, like my little 15 minutes of like being around fame is I was playing this poker game. It was like a low stakes poker game one night at Larry Flint's Hustler Casino, and I'm playing, and I looked next to him. I'm like, and it was just so awkward. I was like, "You're fucking Jerry Buss, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yep, I'm fucking Jerry Buss." And so Jerry Buss,
fucking.
Yeah, he's like, I'm fucking Jerry Buss. He was amazing. And, this was only a couple years before he died. And for those that don't know, Jerry Buss was a big, big high stakes poker player. And of all the celebrities, he was one of the ones that was actually respected because he was a decent poker player. So this night, it just so happened he had come to play in a tournament. He put a bunch of his girls in the tournament, and one of them was crushing it. So he gets knocked out of the tournament. He's got to wait for some of his girls. There was no high stakes game going, so he came and played in the game we were playing in. And she did great. So we ended up talking for like 2 hours. And I mean, this is at the twilight of his life, and he was still so sharp and so smart. And you mentioned Blake Griffin with the Clippers killing it. I was talking to him, and who was the big white guy from Oregon that played? Did he play for Oregon? His name will come back to me. He ended up playing for the Lakers for a bit, played for the Clippers for a bit, I think.
Chris Kaman?
No, another dude. But he was like, he wasn't big enough to be a power forward, but he wasn't exactly like, he wasn't a Dirk Nowitzki that had that sweet shot from outside. Anyway, played for Oregon. And, Jerry Buss gave me the whole dossier on him as to whether or not he was going to be a draft pick, a walk-on, whether he was going to be a big bust. I think he came in the same class as Farmar with UCLA. And I just remember that was one of that was like my LA highlight of being able to just jive with
Luke Jackson.
Jerry. No. Okay. God damn it.
Okay.
Shaved head. We'll find him later. But it was just a highlight of being able to talk to a guy who's a legit billionaire, the owner of the sports franchise that I grew up idolizing. And I just got to talk to him like a human being for a couple hours. And it was so fucking cool, man.
Rest in power.
It was so fucking cool, man.
Rest in power.
Yeah, totally.
Man.
Crazy guy. All right, so I want to hear about the weed industry because, like, you're one of the few people I know that have worked in it from, you know, gray market to medical to now full legal.
Like, I'm not a vet like some of the people who were like the farmers in Humboldt, you know, and stuff like that. But I got a little skin in the game. You know, I will say that it's been 8 years and counting. Yeah, I got in the way that I got in 2016. It was crazy. So I'm making an impact on the company. We're growing. We've got, at one time, we had about 100 plus accounts throughout the state of California.
So you guys were like a wholesaler. You didn't have your own dispensary. You were just making product and delivering to dispensaries.
Wholesaling.
Got it.
And I'm the guy kind of organizing the sales team. Vice president of sales and marketing. I'm responsible for making sure that the product's out there, the relationships are being satisfied, you know, with our cooperative partners, and you know, training a staff of people to go out and to show people how to use this product, because for a lot of people it's still a very new thing. People know what it's like to go and get, you know, a sack and then roll it up themselves.
Right.
But this vaping thing, like, okay, like, you know, what is that? And then the fact that this was one of the first ways that you could actually brand and create a cannabis brand, you know, that was kind of a new territory as well. So yeah, that's 2013, 2014, 2015, and into 2016 we do the vote. And yeah, it's a blessing and it's a curse. It's a blessing.
And you're talking about the vote for full legalization in California.
Vote for full legalization here in California. I mean, we've seen what Colorado did. We've seen what some of the other states have done. So we weren't the first on the train, but we saw the train building up momentum. We voted for it overwhelmingly, passed without any problem. But then the problem for the people like us and the cottage industry, you know, because the cannabis industry at that time was very entrepreneurial. You know, if you've got a product, if you know, want to take the steps to really making it be something that's available for sale on someone's shelf, and you know, you can do that, and you can build that business yourself, you know, and create your own sort of niche, and in that way. And we were kind of working under those laws at the time. The laws are changing now. And so we recognize that, you know, when I started working with my friend from elementary school, we were working out of his garage. I mean, we put ourselves eventually into a position where we could have an office, you know, and we could actually have several employees, you know, working for us, and, you know, that kind of thing, you know, but still we're reinvesting our money into the company just to stay alive. And the more that it's becoming legal and accepted, the more corporate money is coming into this. The more angel investors who have deep pockets are saying, oh, okay, yeah, I'll toss, you know, 20 mil, 40 mil into cannabis. Yeah, this seems like it's something that's cool. And, you know, we can't compete with that. I mean, even if we could, we are the place where our office was not zoned for cannabis manufacturing. And the sad part is that it would have been had we not had a daycare that was 400 feet away. Oh. And the bylaw said that any kind of school, a daycare counts as a school, they have to be like 800 feet away. But we had a daycare that was 400 feet from us, and that nixed us from having, you know, facility. Because at that point, if we actually had a facility that's legally able, you know, to be licensed in that area, that's just a matter of soliciting investment, right? You know, that's just a matter of just, you know, merging with the right people. But try it as we might to get that to happen. 2017, the laws hadn't officially changed, even though they were voted on in 2016. Going into 2018, the company is starting to falter because we can't keep up with, you know, the new changes. We need to be merged into that legal market.
Yeah,
we're not interested in black market and just going that way.
Right. Yeah, because you got this weird mixture of like corporate money and kind of like complete straight and narrow. Then you got this cottage industry of people that are probably actually purveyors of the product and just want to make a good product. Then you got the black market shit, and it's all trying to work together, right?
They don't give a fuck. They just want to sell and make money. I was in that sort of vape section, in the concentrate section of the market. On the black market, they're selling stuff that doesn't even have THC in it. Just stuff that looks the part, and people think, oh, because it's packaged so well, I'll just do that, and I'll just go with that particular product. Now we were facing, these kind of battles all the time, because we were still in that gray area. Coming into 2018, it was just a very, very difficult year, and then the company eventually dissolved. Or we thought we had a deal to get into the legal market, but to this day, I feel horribly for my my former business partner on this, because he was very vulnerable, and he trusted someone. Someone told him, "Hey, I'm going to take your company. I've got licenses. I'm going to bring you guys in." And meanwhile, he just siphoned information from him about how to actually run a cannabis company and what a cannabis company actually needs, and how to buy the raw materials needed to build a
See, this is how people can know that we're actually filming in my garage, because there's cars going by all the time. Anyway,
hey man, but this garage looks fantastic.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Just a wonderful studio here. They just siphoned information from him. By the time that I figured this out, it's kind of late in the game. I've got to go my separate ways, because I've been on furlough for 6 months, unpaid furlough, by the way.
Because you're trying to sell the company, and all the money's going back into the company.
I'm thinking I've got some money saved. I'll just sit on the sidelines, and when this deal comes in, I'm second in line. My friend is the CEO. I'm the number 2. Like, there's got to be a space for me, and then they've got to pay me something that's acceptable, I'm thinking. But yeah, that whole deal collapsed. They just basically, just siphoned information from him. By the time that we figured all this stuff out, really understood it. I had been working on something else in the cannabis industry for myself that wasn't related to the company. But what ended up happening, so I interviewed with this company. There's a social equity program here in Los Angeles where if you've had a previous cannabis conviction, or have lived in an area that's by zip code designated as something that's been impacted by the quote unquote war on drugs, you can qualify for this social equity program. Now it's still sort of like a lottery.
What does that mean? What's the social equity program? Like, what does it entail?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, it's a way of saying, hey, we want to recognize that this war on drugs, definitely was a failure, and put a lot of
every fucking way,
put a lot of people in jail who didn't need to be there. One of the ways that we want to try to, and this is kind of, this is really progressive. We want to actively make, because what happened was that there were people who had already got their licenses because they had just been kind of grandfathered into the system, and they had done good business, above board business for so long, they just sort of got grandfathered in. These were the biggest sort of dispensaries that were in Los Angeles, but that's not enough to really satisfy the demand, the consumer demand for the city. So they said that in the next wave of this rollout, we're actually going to involve people who have been impacted by these cannabis laws, this war on drugs. We're going to help people kind of skip to the front of the line, and if they can find partnerships, or they can find investors who are willing to help them to get the finances together, we'll give you guys a license. You can have your own retail location. And so that's the idea. So being in the industry, I kind of became hip to this sort of program, and I seen the first couple rounds of the program go, and I knew that I was qualified, but I don't have the money to have a retail location,
Right.
So I just kind of didn't really think that it was, something that I should do.
We were talking about, the social equity program,
yes,
and you were mentioning, and libertarian. I'm kind of straddling the fence on a lot of issues. But, if you look at the generic, call it Republican or conservative talking points, progressive policies is kind of a 4-letter word to them. But I think progressives, we got to give them their due, where it's like they're really good at finding these places where there is social inequity and there's intrinsic problems in the past that we should be working to solve. So I'm interested here about the social equity program. Tell me more about what it is.
There's thousands, millions maybe of black people and other people of color in jail over a dime bag. And now there's going to be millions, billions of dollars put into this industry by people who are overwhelmingly white. And where's the justice in letting white people, I'm saying as a group, come into a situation now that it's legal and to just totally take advantage of that when there's still millions of people in jail over it.
Yeah. The fact that anybody is in jail for anything related to weed blows my mind. Like there should just be a blanket order from the governor who, Newsom's not my favorite, but he could do some good things of being like, hey, it's legal. Anybody who had a non-violent crime associated with weed,
Right.
like just get the fuck out of jail.
It's
like start over.
It's a plant.
It's a plant.
You grow it in your backyard just like you would grow tomatoes, peppers.
I can't grow those either. I don't have a green thumb. I kill everything. So I'm not your cultivator for your next
You can come
cannabis
to a tour and you can see the cultivation facility.
Yeah, I'd be a great salesperson in any business, I think, but I'm not growing the shit. So the social equity program, is this a state program, a Los Angeles program?
It's a Los Angeles program. I mean, it's through the state in the sense that the state also has to sign off on your license and everything as well. But yeah, but the city has to grant you the license.
Got it.
So Los Angeles is granting the license. I'm partnered with a cannabis company here that's based in Los Angeles, and so when I started qualifying for this program, I met with them, and they liked me and they offered me a job. Like I didn't expect them to offer me a job. I just thought we were going to talk about this program, but they offered me a job and I was just like, no, I'm kind of doing my own thing. I got some things, some irons in the fire. When it became aware that thing wasn't going to work out, I thought to myself, well, I might as well see what's up. It was only a couple months ago they offered me a job. Let me see if they're still hiring, that way I can stay in the industry, and then I can also see how this, partnership is going to go down, if things go well with the social equity program and the breakthrough with the social equity program. And I called them like, hey, are you hiring? They're like, yeah, we're hiring. Actually, we're still hiring. Are you interested in cultivation? Yes. And what's interesting with that particular thing for me is all of my jobs previously have been people facing, talking to people, whether they're students, whether they're people who work in retail establishments, whether they're teachers over the phone, or what have you. I'm always interfacing with people. This was the first job where I'm really on a team, and I'm mainly interfacing with plants. I'm not interfacing with people. I'm interfacing with the plant. And what's so interesting about it, though, is it's very, very soothing. It's also it's high level gardening, and so you're doing a little bit of this, you're doing a little bit of that. At times you're a bit of a chemist. At times you're more of a straightforward, kind of a gardener. At times you are evaluating, how well the plant is growing, the horticulture aspect of it, and seeing what the plant needs and diagnosing it. You're also a handyman. You're making sure that your air conditioning and your AC is or your humidity rather is operating at the right time, at the right place. And if there's something wrong, you need to be able to fix it, because you've got these lights going on, these plants. This is money that you're paying. This is a power bill. Like, you've got to get the maximum amount of use out of this plant. And so it's at a commercial level, it's new things every day, because some days we're harvesting, some days we're planting, brand new plants into their place. Other days we're just doing plant maintenance. So it's something that's really, really enjoyable for me. Being in a situation before where I was dealing with people all day, now it's like I'm just dealing with plants, for the most part, and my other teammates, and we're all focused on the same thing. We're just focused on these plants, because all we have to do is let the plant be itself. And it's a cash crop, it produces something that people want. And, being a part of that, seeing it grow to fruition, it's a beautiful process.
And I know you're working on a couple of things that we can't talk about yet. Hopefully we'll have you back on a podcast here in a few months.
Yes,
but
indeed.
I know part of this is you're building your resume to go do bigger and better things and,
Yes,
maybe own your own company. So is the social equity program, like, are they basically doing job placement for existing cannabis companies, or are you like a city employee?
No, neither, actually. It's like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to have a cannabis license, and this is the qualifications that you have to have in order. But this is if you're qualified for this opportunity, if you're savvy enough to find and build the relationships with the people that you need to actually own a retail or delivery place and be licensed by the city, this is your opportunity to do that.
Awesome. So this is like the big resume builder to get the big boy license.
Yeah, I mean, the license is, we're working through that currently, so I can't make the official announcement, but yeah, it is something that we're building towards, and I'm excited.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And what do you see, what do you see as the demographic as people currently working in the cannabis industry? I know one of the questions I have is, like, knowing that you've played on both sides, who's worse? Is it the corporate sharks or the illegal, the black market side of it? Like, you mentioned your poor business partner got screwed out of a lot of his intellectual property, and you guys had to make the decision at some point, were we going to go black market? Were we going to try to do this on the up and up? Who's worse to deal with? Is it the sharks in the venture capital world, or is it the criminals in the black market world?
Both. I mean, they're both equally, and the pendulum, right? You're talking about two opposite ends of the pendulum. You want to be like more towards the center, because the people who play the legal game, the black market and the people that are playing the legal game but not for the right reasons, they just want to scavenge. They're just different kinds of scavengers. One is scavenging off of people's lack of knowledge and people's lack of resources, and the fact that something looks, like it should look, and they think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pay a lesser price. No. What if you're not actually getting what you think you're getting? And then the people who are in the corporate aspect and are not doing it for the right reasons, they're not in it because they actually like weed. They just think that it's an opportunity to make a quick buck. Those people are scavengers too, and they just want to siphon information, and they just want to get the most for the least. But that's a bigger discussion on economics. You know what I mean? Because we're all kind of taught that. Even human nature, in a sense, we're taught to get the most for the least.
Right.
Right. But part of that's conservation. Part of that's energy conservation. But then there's another part of that goes into the exploitative side.
Yeah.
And human nature, we got to watch out for that.
Yeah. And do you feel, again, I'm white, you're black, so there's a little bit of a difference of our lived experience. Do you feel anything in the weed industry that there is an exploitive element based on race or social economic class? There is. Okay.
Definitely. And I'm not just saying this out of conjecture or something that I think that I've, an experience that I think that I've had. I've actually had an experience like this. So the company that I'm with, I have nothing but good things to say about the company that I'm with. But prior to me sort of evaluating my opportunity as a social equity applicant, looking out there, there came to be a situation. This is a long story, but I won't get into it. But I'll just kind of suffice to say that my conviction happened so long ago, it was hard finding the paperwork that verified that it was a cannabis-related offense.
Oh, so that's how you got into the social equity program. You have a cannabis conviction.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How'd that go down? You get caught with a dime bag or something?
Well, it's a funny story. So August 2005, my life changed, and I got the phone call from the guy at Oregon, like, oh, I heard you're deferring. Like, oh, man, I wanted you to take over my spot. Free room and board. I got enticed. I thought, oh, wow, okay, like free room and board, because that was my concern. I was working 70-hour weeks as a teacher. The thought of going to law school and knowing how important, especially your first year of law school is, having to do that and all in a month and relocate to another state. I need more time. But then, oh, yeah, free room and board. That enticed me, and I went up there thinking that it was gonna work out. I'm sorry. circle me back to the where this was coming from.
Yeah, how'd you get stuck with the cannabis conviction?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm coming back. So I go up there, and I was seduced. Like there's a program for minority law applicants who are starting their first year. It's sort of like law school, summer school, if you will, right? And they said, oh, well, you know, if you're really thinking about starting this year, you should come to this little camp thing that we're having, you know, and you get to meet some attorneys and, you know, get ready for law school and da. And I was like, okay. So I'm a teacher at this time, right? I'm on summer break, you know, I've got money saved. I'm doing all right. So I go up there, I borrow a car, because my car won't make it to Oregon out there myself, but I borrow a car, a family member's car, and I drive out there. On the way back, I've got school's going to start in a week. I made this 11th hour decision to start law school. I've got roommates that I've got to tell that I'm leaving, and I've got a life to pack up and move out to Oregon. So I'm headed back home on that 5 freeway to the 101 speeding. Well, not necessarily speeding, but going fast. I reached a certain section, Ventura Freeway, 4:30 in the morning. Nobody's on the freeway. So I'm going by 90, but I don't even feel it because I'm in a different car. You know what I mean? And it's a car that rides a lot smoother, and I'm just cruising. Flashing lights behind me. Okay. So, all right, pull over. Yeah, I pull over. Guy pulls me over, says, hey, you know, are you drinking? Have you been drinking? What kind of question is that? You know, it's 4:30 in the morning. What have I been drinking? What are you talking about? Oh, well, you know, got a Crown Royal bag on your passenger seat. What's up with that?
Oh,
I used to keep my weed in a little Crown Royal bag. Because
that's what we do.
yeah, I mean, it looks cool. It's purple, Crown Royal, you know, you got that. So he sees the bag, front seat, nothing I can do. They pull me out of the car, search the car, find my stuff, you know. I've got that on my record now.
Yeah, and it's not like you got 40 pounds of weed in the trunk. You got some personal use on the passenger seat, which literally would not even be looked at twice in 2021.
Yeah.
So you
start law school with a criminal record.
Oh, it's amazing.
I was about to, you know, because I hadn't officially started it. You know what I mean? I was just sort of taking a recruiting trip and going that little summer program, and then I'm on my way to pack up my stuff to go to law school, and now I've got a criminal record.
Oh, man. And I got to ask this question. And again, this will be some conjecture, but I think it's worth asking. What do you think the chances are if you're a white guy driving back from Oregon and you say, oh, I'm just coming back from law school, that they either don't even look in the bag or they don't even think twice? Do you think there's a good chance you don't have that cannabis conviction?
Certainly. Yeah. Certainly. I mean, I've heard stories. So I had a law school friend. He's from Phoenix. He was in high school when the Diamondbacks won the World Series. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think off of what's his name, the Hall of Famer.
Tall white dude, long hair.
Well, yeah, but he hit it off of the New York Yankees closer, Rivera, right? He hit it off Rivera in the bottom of the ninth inning or whatever, Game 7. You know, so they're going crazy in Arizona. My buddy's in high school, is underaged. He told me he had 20 beers. He had like a case of beers driving around Phoenix. He got pulled over. The cop obviously saw all the beers that were empty on the bottom of his seat or on the bottom of the car. The officer says, "Hey, go home right now."
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. Because when he told me that story, I was like, if that was me, oh my God.
Yeah, you have a DUI for sure.
Yeah, and then it's like, how dare he go out and, you know, why didn't he just think better? Or, you know, why didn't you just use better judgment, right? But, yeah, I've heard stories of far less.
Yeah.
People getting away with it for sure.
Yeah, and so silver lining is now 16 years later, you've got this social equity card, right? You're like, hey, I'm the poster boy for getting my cannabis license, and just so happens I've got this conviction where I fall into the demographics of the people you're trying to help.
And there's the deeper meaning for me is that, and I think you can maybe feel me on this too. Coming from Palmdale, understanding that situation. I was 16 years old. I was eligible to work. I was trying as hard as I could to apply to whatever restaurant at the AV Mall was hiring, or whoever at the AV Mall was hiring. I put out so many applications and to try to do so many things, and I could not find a job. And finding a job has just always been like such a hard thing for me. And then I think I go to business school, I'm gonna have some sort of intellectual advantage and be able to better position myself. And I've been working in an entrepreneurial space for so long and building it up, and it's just like, I guess God had a path for me that, hey, you're going to actually get a chance to use all of your skills and all of the resources and that you've developed over the years doing your own thing,
right?
And in this cannabis industry. And it's just like, wow, I didn't see that coming. I thought I was gonna have to go to Amsterdam. You know what I mean?
Right.
When we were in our teens or whatever. But yeah, here we are.
But at the end of the day, because you and I have kind of connected and then fallen out of connection and then reconnected and whatnot, I never get the feeling through any of this that you're angry. Or, I don't see Facebook posts of you railing against the man or the system. Or, we were just talking about Ibram Kennedy's book, Anti-Racist. And you even said that, like, I feel that's bringing some wrong energy to the conversation. Like, what is it about you that you can conceptualize the fact that this is a real problem? It's only a couple people ago that we had, slavery and the deed restrictions and the stuff you and I were talking about off the record. Like, this shit is real shit. But I also feel like you're not angry about it, and you're willing to come on a podcast and talk about it, that doesn't fit the angry black male stereotype.
Truth doesn't need anger. Truth and anger don't necessarily coexist. Truth and calm coexist, right? Whenever people are talking about the truth, they're very calm, right? You never, you may see a person get animated, but never really angry if they're really effective speakers, right? Anger turns people off. It turns people away. Anger is an interesting energy because it happens. We get angry about certain things, but anger in and of itself is an incomplete energy. You have to apply creativity to anger in order to transcend it and in order for it to actually work towards something beneficial. Anger in and of itself kills itself. You know? It kills itself. You ever been angry and you had an argument with somebody, right? And you didn't think it through long enough? You said some shit that you didn't mean to say.
Sure.
Or some shit that probably you just shouldn't have said.
Yeah. Anybody who's been married knows exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. And that's anger in and of itself. It's an incomplete energy. You've got to pair anger with art. You've got to pair anger, whether it's a physical art or a martial art, you know what I mean? Or whatever, or it's some kind of creative energy. You've got to pair that anger with. Now, when people have paired anger with other creative things, we see magnificent things happen.
Yeah.
In our lifetime, and in previous lifetimes. You've heard that story about someone who got angry. Michael Jordan got angry that he wasn't on his varsity team. Imagine if Michael Jordan if the coaches said, "Oh, okay, you're good enough. All right, yeah, sophomore, okay, yeah, you'll make the team."
Yeah,
no, he got sent to JV. That anger in Michael Jordan as a high school sophomore going into his junior year. Fuck that. Not good enough. I'm killing this JV game, and matter of fact, next year you're gonna have no choice but to let me on the team. And that sparked whatever that sparked.
Yeah, the greatest of all time.
Because he applied that anger to something artistic, creative, whatever you want to call it. And because he applied that energy to something, that's how he was able to make use of it. So being angry, not gonna do nothing.
Give you a heart attack. That's about it.
Increase your stress level.
Yeah.
Your dick shrivel up.
Yeah, totally. What are some things socially that are going on right now that frustrate you, anger you, and maybe it doesn't come out in an outward expression, but you're like, hey man, we were talking about guns earlier.
It's a very simple answer.
Yeah, you were like
racism, white supremacy, and I'm not talking to people on a personal level, right? When I say that term, I'm talking about that entity, that collective consciousness. Okay. And that to me is the biggest issue. If we continue just to dance around that issue and we don't see it, how it impacts the other aspects of our life, and if we don't take the time to really understand it, the country is going to implode on itself.
Yeah.
Because
explain to me what that means to you as somebody who has a totally different life experience than me. Because, I hear white supremacy and I immediately, like, my gut reaction is like, no, man, that doesn't exist. Like, come on, you're watching too much news. Of course, because I'm white.
And that's taught to you.
Right.
And it's not necessarily a conscious thing, but it's taught to you. And it's not even necessarily by your parents. I'm talking about media. I'm talking about the social conditions. You're taught to deny. That's the first rule of white supremacy. Deny. That doesn't exist.
Right. Point to Oprah. Point to Kanye. People. Yeah. We had a black president. We're over it. But where does that? What's the word I'm looking for? Where does that manifest itself in your thought process or in your daily experience? Because I don't want that to exist. I don't know what to do about it.
Until we understand that racism is at and I say the two things interchangeably, because racism is white supremacy. The only racism is anti-black racism. You can have prejudice, you can have discrimination, right, of other things. But when we talk about racism, we're only talking about anti-black racism. That's the only racism that exists. And this is not just an American phenomenon. This is true across cultures throughout the world. The darker skinned people are treated differently.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That's understood and accepted. Well, not necessarily accepted, but it's understood.
Right.
All throughout the world.
Yeah.
No matter what country you go to.
Dude, you go to Mexico City, and the more Caucasian-looking Castilian, descendants of Spaniards versus the darker Mexicans versus, God forbid, the El Salvadorians. You think we have a race problem in America? Go hang out in Mexico for a while and listen to how lighter-skinned Mexicans talk about darker-skinned Mexicans. You're like, oh, you guys got the same shit down here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Big time. So this is not just an American phenomenon. This is something that impacts the world. We experience our American manifestation of it, right? But this is a phenomena that's global. This is impacting everyone every single day. It impacts us in every area of human activity. Labor, politics, economics, war, sex, religion, etc. It's prevalent. And the only way that we are going to change, fuck the system. I'm sorry, I don't mean that like as a soundbite. I just mean like before we even talk about the system, just on a personal level, what I'm getting at. So forget even talking about systematic aspects of it until we, neighborhood to neighborhood, person to person, friend to friend, until we have a real honest dialogue about that and about what it is and how it, manifests itself in a real honest dialogue about it, we're never going to get anywhere. This is the same thing as the hamster, on that circle. The hamster thinks it's going somewhere. No, you're just getting some exercise. You're staying in the same place. Like, we can dance around this. We can try to talk about the vaccine, and we can try to talk about, coronavirus and getting back to normal and whatever that means. And, until we actually deal with this issue worldwide, we're not going to have change. We're going to experience the same kinds of things that we've been experiencing. Do we want to have a utopian society? That's a great question. Do we really want that? Because some people don't want that. They want to amass as much as they want to amass in this lifetime and then pass it off to a select group of people and continue that thing. That's their thing. They don't give a fuck about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but whatever. If you feel that way, that's cool. But let's have an honest conversation about it.
Yeah.
That's all. Let's really talk. Let's not act like, oh, that you really, care and you do, whatever philanthropic work you think you're doing and you have that mentality. It's bullshit. It's not real philanthropic work.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. If you really feel that way, then you do you, but like, just be honest, be open about it.
Yeah.
George Floyd was murdered. We didn't need the fucking jury to figure that out. Would anyone like for someone to kneel on their neck for 9 minutes? Raise your hand if you don't think that that's, a bad thing.
Right.
We have to really address that issue. We have to understand it. And the only way, we are all in a collective relationship with the world, right? I exist in the world, you exist in the world. We have our little micro universes. Those micro universes bump up against each other. And it's a collective, it's a universe. We can live in our little multiverses, but it's a universe. It's one. And so until collectively, and it starts individually with us just talking about it and really communicating about it, nothing's going to change. And so that's the main thing. We have to communicate honestly about colonialism, imperialism, racism, white supremacy. These are things that happened. These are ideas that happen. We've been impacted. We have the advantage of having instantaneous information at our fingertips. Not all of it is 100% accurate, right? But it's more accurate than not. And you can look through different sources and verify accuracy, for that matter. But we have the ability now to really understand our history, to really understand the things that have happened in the past. And if we, the past, present, and future are actually happening at the same time. We have to really grasp that concept. We're in the present now. The present is a gift. Present, gift. We understand that. The past happened. What are we going to do about it? And that decision is going to create our future. So, like I say, do we really want to have a utopian society? I don't know. I do. That's what I want to build. I think that we should have a world. We have a beautiful world. Everyone should be able to enjoy it, to the degree that they can. And we should do something so that people can, have that ability. If you've got resources, there's no need to hoard resources. Energy is not created or destroyed, right? You have it, you have the ability. We should be doing. And again, I'm not trying to take people's money away from them. I'm not trying to take. I'm not. But what I believe that there's a world that works for everybody. We have to see it though. And again, we have to ask these questions. I mean, maybe the question that I'm asking, maybe if we did a Twitter poll or whatever, and everyone has a smartphone, and we just did a poll and said, hey, do we want collectively to create a utopian society? Is that really what we want to do? And if 70% of the people say no, well then shit, okay.
Right.
That's good information. I'm glad that I have that information now. Now, maybe I won't try to do that for the world, but I'll just try to do that in my own little, enclave, that I built for myself or whatever. And that's cool. But knowing that that's not what other people want, hey, well, you go out and you do you, because essentially, we're on this planet. Before, there was stuff here before. There's probably going to be some stuff here after. So we're here right now. What are we going to do with it? That's why I'm not mad, because it's like I've seen this thing happen so much that I've seen history repeat itself, and it's just like well, you don't know this, but I made a documentary when I was in college. A young black man was pulled over by the police. Not gonna say that I know definitively what happened, but it's the gun that they say that he shot at them. Forensics said was never actually fired. And the gun was last registered to the chief of police in a nearby city. So we have what looks like police cover-up, and which led to the death of a young black man who was my age right around that time that I was going to college. And I've seen, not only did I I saw the city give the officers involved, they awarded them as police officers of the year and gave them a $5,000 bonus or bounty, if you will, and I saw the way that the city, a college town, more or less, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? The Claremont, people know about Claremont because of the Claremont colleges, right? But in this case, they went, totally supporting the police officers who were clearly wrong. And that showed me at an early age, it was like, this thing is deep. This is institutional, because this is just one thing happening in Claremont, California. This is just Southern California. There's all sorts of things happening all throughout Southern California.
Yeah. And Southern California is about as progressive as you can get, and theoretically.
Right. And we're not in, deep Mississippi somewhere.
Right.
Right. We're in Southern California, where you think, would be, progressive. But yeah, I saw the police cover this up. I saw the city cover this up. I saw those police officers walk away, and I saw residents of the city support the police officers in light of all of that overwhelming evidence. And yeah, that being so fiercely involved in creating that documentary, which is called Dead on Baseline Road, which is the story of young man named Irvin Landrum Jr. It's available on YouTube. Go check it out. Seriously though, like, being deeply involved with that documentary, meeting the mother, seeing the protests go on at the city, understanding the overwhelming mountain of evidence that was against these officers, and to still see the way that they were canonized by the powers that be, it was just like, wow, okay. Because, you grow up, we're in high school together. We teach history class. They teach you about Emmett Till and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, well, that was the 50s, right? Like, right. We had
that's the past.
Rights. Yeah. I mean, this stuff is, no. It's just different now.
We mentioned in the break when we were hitting the restroom, I'm reading that book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And where I think it's so hard for people to come at these conversations genuinely is that you and I can both admit there's a problem, right? We can both admit that there's a diagnosis that is a problem. The cancer is there. Yeah. But what concerns me is everybody jumps right into the prescription, and there's a lot of different ways, there's a lot of different opinions on how to fix the problem. And I'll just use Republicans as a blanket term for people to the right. They hate the idea of affirmative action, or they hate the word equity because they don't agree that that's the right prescription. And then you have people on the left that are, doing what they're doing and whatever it is, protesting, or the Antifa people, which I got a whole different set of problems with them, but they're doing what they think they should do. And it's like, we're moving right to the prescription, which I think we can have some honest debate about if people like you and I sit and we talk about the diagnosis. And I just think nobody talks about the diagnosis because they want their, 30-second political clip, or they want their 5-minute YouTube video to go viral arguing about the solution.
I order the prescription for white supremacy on Amazon and have it delivered to me tomorrow?
Right. I need everything fixed tomorrow. And that either means we've got equity, or we've got affirmative action, or we've got to burn it down in the streets, or we've got to pretend it doesn't exist. But fuck, dude, can't we just take a breather, step back one step, and have a conversation about the diagnosis? And I don't think anybody's doing that at a genuine level in a lot of America.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because the first rule of white supremacy is deny, 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 deny. And so if you deny, if you're not willing to actually engage and have that conversation, that's it's like when you have a cancer diagnosis. Oh no, it maybe, the doctor made a mistake, or it'll go away, or,
Yeah.
It's like that. That's when, and again, we're not talking about individuals. We're not talking about, we can, but we're not going to do that. We're talking about a collective. So the collective works a lot like the individual, in the sense that it's just a group. When something's wrong, what do? Do you deny it, or do you actively try to investigate? Which way is going to give you, when your check engine light comes on, do you just sit and wait?
My wife does. Fuck. She'll drive around with 4 flat tires until I say, hey, your tires are a little low. But anyway, my wife's a lovely person. I just had to make a joke. Collectively,
though, yeah, what's our mindset? Are we going to let our engine just burn out? The check engine light's been flashing. But hey, if the car's working, keep going. Keep going. Okay. At that rate, the oil's going to burn out. Something's going to happen. Your intake valve is going to, okay.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you want, because we got a good thing here. We, America's got its issues, but we have the opportunity. Everyone around the world looks to us as an example. I mean, if people are watching this internationally, maybe you disagree, but it seems like the world from, a popular media sort of circumstance, like they take their cues from what we do here. Our dollar is the trading, right? Financially speaking, right? The US dollar is the main, it's not the euro.
Right. Yeah. We're the reserve currency.
So we have the opportunity. We have the well-documented history of slavery here on this country. Now, it wasn't just here. It was in Brazil. It was in all throughout the Americas. But we, as I'll say McDonald's, so to speak, just because it's like the biggest popular. When you think of burgers, you think McDonald's, right? It's the biggest popular name. Since we're sort of the colonialism, like McDonald's or whatever, we're like the most visible, the most obvious example. It's up to us to set the tone.
But you said something in there that you would probably gloss over, but I kind of latched onto it, where this is why I love talking to you so much, man, because you can admit that we have problems. You can admit that we have serious problems that affect you personally. And yet you still said America's a great place. We've got it pretty good here. You just want to see it get better. And I think a lot of people go to that angry place of like, no, all of America is fucked up. Burn it all down. Start over again. We need anarchy in the street, and I don't think that's the solution either. No. So what is it that makes it different about either your intellect, your experience, what your mom taught you, where you can still say, hey, man, we got it pretty good here. America's a good place. It's got a good foundation, but we've got some shit we got to fix. Like, how can you go there and not just go straight to the negative?
Again, if you want to I'm just giving you a metaphor here. Let's say, not you, just if someone is fat, right? They want to have a physically chiseled, like healthy looking body. Being angry about being fat, blaming other people, that's not going to do anything for you. Even if it happened, even if someone force fed you, lard, right? That's not going to change. You're overweight. What are you going to do about it? Okay, you're going to say that life is too hard. I don't like being fat. I'm going to blow my brains out. Really? Damn. I don't think you're still going to be fat.
Yeah.
You're still going to need a big ass
fat and dead. Yeah.
So like, I don't think that's an answer, so the answer, as in high school, I was in drama, I was a drama geek. But I say that to say that when you play a role, about going deeper into that role, because you're not that person, you're not that character, but you can be that character. And that's what acting is all about. It's about you putting yourself in that situation, understanding that way that character moves and feels and thinks. And the deeper you go into that character, the better your performance is going to be. And then people say, wow, that's Al Bundy, right? Ed O'Neill went so deep into that character that he's Al Bundy.
Nobody will ever think of him as anybody but Al Bundy.
If I see Ed O'Neill, I'm going to say, yo, Al, what's happening?
Yeah, like, 4 touchdowns your senior year of high school. Like, he's Al Bundy.
He's Al Bundy because he got so deep into that character. And it's like, we have to do the same thing in essence. We have to get into character. We have to go deeper. The surface level only tells you so much. I might see someone walking down the street and I might think that we have nothing in common. And lo and behold, chances come what they may. You get a chance to talk to that person, you find out that you have a lot in common.
Yeah.
I dated a girl, she lived in the same, we didn't know it at the time, but she lived in the same area that I lived in for like 10 years. Like I moved places, she moved in that same area. And we never met, but it's like the commonality's there. We have to just find it. We have to look for it. If we don't do it in good faith, okay, let's at least say that we're not going to be good faithful about it. Let's just be honest, real. You want to stick to being racist and, you like that, you were taught that, you feel comfortable with that, right? Okay, I'll stay away from you. You do you. You live your life. You know what I mean? I'm going to do my thing. If it's, let's just be, and that's the thing we talk about the Democrats. They want to talk a really good movie. Eddie Murphy broke this down in The Distinguished Gentleman. Not necessarily the exact issues that I'm talking about, but what I'm talking about is the political game. One of his lesser known films, but is really like a classic of his. It's a movie called The Distinguished Gentleman. Everyone should see it. It's hilarious. But he's dropping some real game in that movie about what politicians do. And I'm not giving away too much of the plot. Eddie Murphy cons his way into political office. Then he's got to actually be a congressman. Okay, right? And one of the issues that he figures out that he can actually help on, while being this novice, fake sort of congressman, he figures out, hey, I can actually do something focusing on this issue. And the politicians that he's in bed with, he brings it to their attention and they have a press conference and they say, yeah, of course, we got to do something about this issue. You're absolutely right. And our constituents and this and that and the other. And we're going to have some committee meetings and this, that, and the other. And boom. And nothing happens in the movie. And
in real life.
And in real life.
Right.
And that same thing continues. Politicians, they'll even go so far as to admit certain things and, acknowledge certain things, but they don't actually do shit. Oftentimes.
Yeah. What would you like to see as either a conversation piece, a jumping off piece? What would you like to see from our politicians? And you can go on the right side, the left side, both sides. I think they're both equally as horrible. That's why I'm a libertarian. On many things, I think they're both equally as horrible. What would you like to see from politicians? And then maybe what would you like to see from the individual? And you can take it black, white, left, right, okay, as all of humanity. What are some prescriptive things you'd like to see?
Well, the biggest thing, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is reparations. Slavery happened. And to say that it was 150 years ago is a bad faith argument in my sight. And it's something that happened. People have profited from it. And not only have people profited, there's been an agonizing amount of abuse taking place. And so if you are a black person, a citizen of this country, and you can trace your roots to American slavery, you deserve something. It happened for all the other groups. Why not black people? That and again, like that's a huge conversation, and there's so much about what people and their parents taught them and what they think is right or wrong, but it's a conversation that's worth having. And it's something that needs to happen, quite frankly, because, you talk about a change in energy, a shift in energy, that includes financial, just like mental, emotional, physical kind of things, you have financial things. And this country has benefited from cotton and sugar and tobacco, period. And the wealth that set this country off and its founding fathers and all the people, involved in, the creation and legislation of this country, they benefited from that. And numerous corporations benefited from that and still have not paid any of that money back. That's a conversation that needs to be had in this country, worldwide, quite frankly. But America, like I said, as the leader, needs to be the one to really kind of set that off into motion, because the same can be said in Brazil, the same can be said in Mexico, the same could be said all over Canada too. There's all throughout the Americas, all throughout Africa. There's colonialism, imperialism. This stuff happened. It happened. And to say that we can't trace back and create some kind of an economic figure that's based on, what we benefited from that or how much, is owed, that's BS, because it can be. And, but again, is the conversation even worth having? We need to go some ways. There's a lot of conversation needs to be had before we get to that. But that's like the biggest issue. On an individual level, if you are a white person and you work with a black person who is qualified and you've built a rapport with this particular person, if you're in a situation to hire that person or promote that person within your organization, that is something that you can do on a microcosm level to help eliminate, the issues that we have. I'm not speaking for all black people. People just want an opportunity. People just want, the American dream. They want to raise a family. They want to be free of violence and, that sort of, they want to be free to just be themselves. That's what people want. Raise their families. And, that's, I think that people are worried, like people want revolt. Black people don't want that. We just want what was taken from us, what we worked for free for, that was benefited, that this country benefited from. And, other groups have gotten that, whether you're talking about the Japanese in the internment camps, whether you're talking about the Native Americans. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about, there's racism within the Native American community. Nobody wants to talk about that, but, there's documented, evidence about that. And, but yeah, like lots of different groups have gotten their share of, reparative things from the American government. The United States needs to do that. And that will actually set off a chain of reaction worldwide where that kind of stuff gets talked about, discussed more. And I think that's really the first domino falling to us creating that utopian society that I'm talking about. If we're really open, we're really honest, we're really ready to sort of, have these kind of conversations, shift the way that things have been, to talk about it together and to really be open about it. That's the only way that things are going to change to me.
Are you familiar with economic opportunity zones? It was a IRS code. It first came out under the Obama administration, and then it was either renewed or expanded or whatever it's called under Trump. You familiar with it at all?
I've heard of it, but put me on game.
Yeah. So see, I think this is where when you and I, people like you and I, are having honest conversation with each other and we're being genuine, then we can argue about what's the prescription for the diagnosis, right? Because you might call it reparations. And, whether it's conditioning,
restorative justice, equity, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, obviously, and whether this is conditioned in me or it's the part of the deny, again, my stomach turns almost immediately when I hear the word reparations. I'm like, we can't do it. It's stupid. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's the libertarian in me. But one of the things that I think is really cool is these economic opportunity zones. They basically carved out underserved communities, which are economically underdeveloped. Not surprisingly, a lot of brown and black communities. And they said, okay, well, we can't give reparations, but what we can do is we can economically incentivize people to come work in these areas. So Mr. Investor, Mr. Venture Capitalist, Mr. Property owner, if you come into a socially economic depressed area and you invest money and you keep that investment there for 10 years, when you sell it, there's no capital gains tax. So a friend of mine just executed on one of these where he was selling a storage unit and he had about $1 million capital gains from the storage unit. He's like, fuck, man, I'm going to pay $400,000 in taxes. And so he got with the accountant and the accountant said, hey, there's these economic opportunity zones. So he went to an area in Baltimore that, if I'm being honest, he probably wouldn't be caught dead in, but for $300,000 or $400,000, incentives matter. All of a sudden he was like, all right, if I can keep $300,000 or $400,000, I'll start looking at other areas. So he found an old, airplane hangar or old warehouse in a really rundown area of Baltimore. He spent his money and this money to renovate it, build a new, bigger storage unit, employ people in the community. You have to show X amount of jobs and X amount of capital investment in the community. He's building up the community. And now in 10 years, whenever he sells that building, he'll have no capital gains. And to me, on the libertarian side, I hate taxes. So I'm a big fan of any policy that gets rid of taxes. I love the idea of serving underserved communities. And I'm like, oh, this is a good policy to put money back into the communities that have been politically and by policy fucked. You know, and I love everything about it because I'm like, cool, we've got personal responsibility of individual investors coming into an area, making the area better. We're fucking the government by saying we're not going to pay taxes to you guys. And then not surprisingly, this is helping underserved communities that are, you know, habitually black and brown. So I'm a big fan of that. But I think you and I can have that conversation over dinner if we have an honest conversation about the diagnosis that there's a problem. But I think so many people have been conditioned to be like, no, there's not a problem. That's their problem. They caused it themselves. It's like, well, not really. You know? Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, denial is a very strong thing. And until people are ready, complacency as another word, is another thing, another word for denial. These habits are bad habits that people have on an individual level and we have at a collective level. And so, again, what are we going to honestly do? Do we want to have a utopian society? Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. I don't know. I think it sounds like a good idea. I think other people would think that it's a good idea too. But maybe there are other people out there that when they think about it deep down inside, you know, that's a problem for them. They want to be out for them and, you know, their family or whatever. Okay. Yeah. But if that's the mentality, at least let's just be honest about it.
So let me play devil's advocate on this question, and I hope it's a fair question. Where do you think, if we're looking at the other side of the argument, right? If we're trying to come at it from good faith and we're trying to steel man the other side of the argument, where do you think there's either collective denial or complacency on the side of whatever you want to call it, black community, black culture, the black race? I don't even know how you want to define that. Is there something that you see in your own group, in your own demographic, where it's like, hey, we've got some problems too. We've got some shit we got to fix on our side of the fence.
I was talking about the internet and how powerful the internet is. In the last 10 years, I've learned so much more about our history, of the U.S. history, because I didn't have access to this kind of information. It was hard to find. You had to, there were scholars that wrote about it, but you had to read their whole book. You know what I mean? There were people who talked about it, but you had to find your way to go to their little lecture or something like that. You know, the information's been hidden for so long, but now with video, with the internet now, the consciousness is out there more. And, you know, the Tulsa race riot, we're coming up on the 100-year anniversary of that. There was a thriving black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 1901, the U.S. government, the state arm of that in Oklahoma, literally bombed the black city, or bombed the black part of that city, which was known as Black Wall Street, and bombed it, destroyed it, sabotaged it. They didn't tell us about that when we were in history class. Like, that's really fucked up. You know, that's just as fucked up as, you know, stuff that happened in the Holocaust. I don't want to like compare, you know, I know we're.
Yeah. Tragedy is tragedy.
Right. But I'm saying though, like, you know, there's a reason why they're not telling us about that, because if they really told us the real truth, like they're scared that we're going to like rebel or whatever. And it's like, hey, look, you know, let's just acknowledge the truth. I've heard someone say, like, you know, people want to tear down statues or whatever. No, just put a little plaque that says this person was a slave owner. That's better than tearing down the statue. More educational. Yeah, look at Robert E. Lee or whatever, or, you know, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Yeah, okay, yeah, you know, but this is also what they did. You know about that. You know, this person was a slave owner. Yeah, and, you know, they have a street named after them, but yeah, they were also a slave owner. Think about that. That's how different the world was. You know, but yeah, connected. There's still a street named after that person. There's still a school named after that person. You know, and again, I'm not saying that we have to tear down statues and do that, but I'm saying, let's be honest. Let's talk about it. It's the truth. It happened.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand why, and this seems to be a very recent American phenomenon, that we can't accept that two things can be true at once. You can say, hey, that person was a really important figure in history and he owned slaves. Like, I don't know why there has to be this intellectual purism on everything.
Yeah.
Like, you and I are really...
The statue's not going to do anything.
No.
Because then that history is just going to be further pushed down to the bottom.
Yeah, two things can be true at once. You and I can be really good friends, and we can admit that I've probably said some shit in a locker room or in the army or made some jokes that you would not be proud of me saying, right? Two things can be true at once. And I don't know why Americans have now got to this point where we have to have this intellectual or racial or political purity. It's like with the Democrats, there's some shit I agree with. There's some shit I really disagree with. With the Republicans, there's some shit I disagree with. There's some shit I really disagree with. I fall in the middle as a libertarian. I know 100 libertarians. I venomously disagree with a lot of their political positions. Like, why does there have to be this purity test? It's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like your idea of like, yeah, leave the fucking statue up and put a plaque that explains the good shit and the bad shit that he did. And I don't know, let people be educated.
Yeah.
Crazy thought, right?
But that's dangerous though, because we are getting closer to the Matrix. It seemed like it was such a far off, futuristic, kind of hokey sort of idea, but more and more, I think I see ourselves inching to that sort of society where it's like, they didn't really teach us to be critical thinkers. They taught us to be good employees, good workers, follow direction, shut up when someone's talking, be respectful. And like, when we're taught to follow rules and follow directions and authority. I mean, I'm generalizing. I'm talking about public school.
Yeah, totally.
In the 90s. But yeah, that's what they tried to teach us. They didn't necessarily teach us to be critical thinkers, but that's something that you actually have to have, in this lifetime. And yeah, the critical thinking is less and less and less embraced. It's more and more about following what someone said, and you don't even know if what they're saying is true or not, or real or not. It's just, no, you believe it. It's on TV. Come on. Right? Believe it. Do it. Follow it. Yeah. And yeah, it's we've seen that movie. I didn't see the whole movie. I just saw like the first half of it. Is Idiocracy?
Yeah. Very prophetic.
But
prophetic.
It came out in 96. And if you look at it now, there are some parallels in there that have really come true.
Yeah.
Mike Judge was on something. He saw the future.
Yeah. Comedy usually has such a insane vein of truth to it, and it's one of the things.
Comedy, I love it. It's my favorite artistic art or form.
Yeah, I love it, and it bugs me that so many comedians are getting canceled now or told what they can't say this, because I'm like, man, every joke, every stereotype, every prejudice, some of the ways you bring that to the surface is through comedy, right? Because it's like it's a safe space to talk about shit that like we probably need to talk about.
By definition, especially stand-up comedy, but comedy itself, but I say especially stand-up comedy, is built on being edgy. You have to, there's no one wants to hear you stand up and say stuff that they're already like thinking or whatever, or there's stuff that they've already said. There's nothing original about that. It's about that person saying things that you don't have the bravery and courage to say, or presenting ideas to you that you never even thought of. It's on the edge, right? We're on stand-up comedy is always something that's got to be on the edge, and that the thing that I love about stand-up comedy is that, you're a singer, you're a actor or whatever, a dancer. At the end of your performance, they'll still do this, just out of, respect. Yeah. They'll boo you if you're a stand-up comedian. Even the most, sort of friendly crowds. I mean, maybe they won't boo you, but they'll talk over you.
Yeah.
They won't give you your attention. And, that there's something about the adversarial nature of that where it's like, you don't know who I am or what I'm going to say, but I'm going to hold your attention for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe even an hour. Dave Chappelle, I've seen him go on for like 3 hours.
Dude, he's the greatest of all time.
He's definitely
the GOAT.
One of the GOATs. I mean, I still got to put Eddie up there because, raw, delirious. Some of that stuff's just it's so vintage, it's so incredible. But yeah, I mean, right now we're talking about goats. Dave, definitely. What he's able to do. I spent $80 when I was starting off in graduate school. He had just left the Chappelle Show. He did a concert or a performance in Eugene at the basketball arena. I had friends from undergrad who lived in Portland who were coming down to Eugene for that. I didn't even want to spend my money on it, quite frankly, because $80 when you're in school, that's like a lot of money. You don't have any income coming in. It's like shit, $80. But I bought those concert tickets for $80. Is the best $80 I ever spent.
Yeah.
Dave, he did an hour and 10 minutes of sort of planned material. Then he went off, and then they just encore. He obliged, and he came out for about another, say, at least an hour and a half, and just conversation with the audience, people shouting out random stuff, and he got a joke for it. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I saw, this is another one of those LA experiences, I don't know, it's like company Christmas party. We went to the comedy club or something like that. And, we saw the little B-, C+ up and comers. It was cool. You're drinking, you have a good time, you laugh. And then everybody's getting ready to get up and leave. And the show host came in and they were like, hey, can everybody sit down real quick? And we're like, what the fuck, man? They're going to try to juice us for another $17 Miller Lite or something. And he's like, hey, if you guys are okay with it, we have somebody here backstage that wants to come work some of his test material. He's got an hour-long special coming up. He'd like to try it out on you guys. And so everybody, of course, sat back down. No idea who it was. And Chris Rock came out. And it was basically his whole set right before he did Bigger, Blacker, Better.
Oh, wow.
And he went through what eventually became the whole set. And some of it hadn't quite been worked out, and there was a few times where I felt for the guy. But I mean, you just talk about watching a genius work through their craft. I'm like, oh, this is really good shit. And that's one of my highlights of my 20s is seeing Chris Rock for free. And it was pretty epic. Didn't even have to spend the $80, man. It was pretty awesome. So we talked about a lot of stuff that's wrong. As we close this up, tell me about something that you're seeing or you're involved in, or a direction of either our community, our country, something. Tell me something that you're excited about, or something that you think is going well, right? And that might be a politician, that might be a social movement, that might be something like. Give us some hope here, no pun intended.
Wow. Okay. I hate that this is so hard for me, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's so easy for us all to point out the problems, right? But a little appreciative inquiry, like I don't even care if it's just you personally. What's going well in your life?
Okay, I'm a big sports nut. I love the fact that it's the NBA playoffs right now. May is so I'm conceived in May. I'm born in February, right, and then right in the middle of February. So May is when I was conceived. When I did the math, and there's always something about that month. We're in May right now. The days are getting longer and longer by the day, and it's the playoffs right now. We're getting the summer is getting set up. We're seeing all the great boxing matches that are being planned, for this summer. Boxing is my second favorite sport. So yeah, right now it's a good time. We're coming out of this pandemic. So I guess what gives me hope, ostensibly.
No qualifiers. Just give me some hope.
Coming out of this pandemic. I mean, I think that a lot of us, especially here in Southern California, but all really throughout the world, these phones have made everything, such a fast-moving society. And I think my hope is that we spent the last year either in reflection, or either with ourselves or with our families, and we recognize the importance of life, the value of life. There are people who are here or who are not here today that a year and a half ago were here, and they were reasonably healthy. And these kind of things, happen because, talk about the pandemic. I don't want to get into another discussion about vegetarianism, but we create these kind of conditions by the way that we live, in essence. And so, this was a virus that we created not purpose, or I don't know. I don't want to get into speculation. What I'm just talking about is the overarching element of the fact that, you know, on an individual level, you get sick, you don't know how you got sick. Your focus is on wanting to get well, right? Doing whatever it takes to get well. We, as a humanity, have been sick, and we've been forced to deal with that for a year and a half now. Let's get well, you know, and I think like let's get well. Let's be better so that we don't have viruses like that anymore, and we're vital. We have to do that as a people.
Yeah. And last question, this could be about your business, about your life, about what's going on politically, socially. We didn't even get to gun control. You're gonna have to come back for part 2 so we can talk about all that stuff. What's the question you wish people would ask you, or what's on your heart that you want to talk about? What's the question you wish I would have asked in the last 2 hours?
This has been really revealing, man. I've said a lot. I think that we're gonna have to come back and have another conversation. Hopefully the people out there, you know, watching, listening, they've enjoyed this conversation. And if the people want me to come back for more, I'm happy to be back, because we need more of these conversations, these honest, open, respectful, real conversations. And so that's what it's all about. That's what I'm all about. That's who I am. You know, I'm down for those kind of things. I that's the world that I want to live in. A world that's respectful, a world that's compassionate, a world that is intelligent, and a world that's informed. And that's how we live our best lives, man, when we activate our full potential. So I want our potential to be activated. And if someone's potential has been activated and they like this, they like what we've got going on, we got to talk for more, because we could do this for, you know, all day if we wanted to.
Yeah, when I messaged you, you're like, I don't know, man. What are we going to talk about? I'm like, trust me. 3 hours will go by so fast, and we got another 3 hours of shit we could talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm the kind of person I think it comes from being a teacher and then having acting experience. Like if I'm going to say something, if people are going to look at me, I just want to have a little feeling of like what I'm going to be talking about. Because I feel like if I'm up there and I don't really know what people are looking for or what they want me to say or what I'm supposed to say, then I'm just like out to lunch. But yeah, but you gave me some good direction, and this was fun, man. I had a great time. Thank you so much to all your listeners, to you, to everyone on the technical side.
Yeah, shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris.
All right, man. We'll have you back on in a couple months, and we'll definitely do this again.
Sounds good to me, man.
Sweet.